Hey everybody, Keenan Gray here from DyeStat.com, bringing you another edition of DyeStat discussions. Of course, high school cross country just getting underway across the nation, and of course, in the state of Texas, it is off and running too. Talking with one of the not only the best athletes in the state of Texas, but also the entire country, the number one ranked girl heading into our DyeStat individual rankings, Miss Elizabeth Leachman of Boerne Champion High School, joins us here on DyeStat discussions. I mentioned the fact that Texas really just got things going with. Is it nice to be back racing once again?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely missed it. Cross country is by far my favorite season, so it feels really nice to be back out on the grass.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the opener. It looked like it was a pretty good effort, a nice little win. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the first meet I went into was really a last minute decision. I think it was a Friday race, and we decided that I was going to run it on the Tuesday leading up to it, um, just to kind of be a part of something with the team and really help show the new girls the ropes and just kind of get a feel for being in that environment again. So it was super fun, a super fun experience, and I think that our team is really showing a lot of promise, which is exciting. So yeah, it was great, and I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to do it.
Well, I like to think you're showing a lot of promise, especially after last year we saw just, the growth and this kind of the breakout year you had as this sophomore. Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, just, from the fall season to winning Foot Locker to indoors, winning Nike Indoor Nationals in the 2 mile and the 5,000, and then outdoor, a couple of national records. I mean, it seems like it was a dream season for anybody.
Yeah, I think I say it all the time, but I think just the best word I can use to describe last year is surreal. Um, my freshman cross country season, I was kind of at the place where I could kind of be competitive in 5A, enough so to have made it to state on my own, but that was pretty much it. I wasn't really competitive with the top girls there, and I think at NXR I just barely squeezed into the top 50. I got something like 49th. And so I definitely wasn't expecting to go into that track season and be able to accomplish what I did. I didn't think I could break 5 for 1 mile, much less 2. Um, but yeah, I mean, the next year I was really just hoping to make it to NXN and to Foot Locker and just get those opportunities that I'd always dreamed of being a part of. And so to be in contention for either and to win Foot Locker was not even on my mind when the season started. So it was just so great, and I just am really appreciative and grateful for everything that I got to experience and be a part of last year.
So for those that are freshmen and make that transition to sophomore year, for you, what was that initial click for you to make that big jump?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was even going into freshman track season, I did see a big jump, but I hadn't been able to be super consistent with my training for a very long time because I had really been injured on and off since my 8th grade track season and was just never really running consistent weeks. And I think I'd finally kind of figured out how to fit or find training that would fit my body and keep me healthy throughout the season, but just barely once track season was underway. And so I think just having months of training that was good for my body and allowed me to stay healthy was really just key in building that fitness and getting me to where I needed to be.
You found that, of course, through cross training with swimming and really a lot of elliptical as well. I think that's the most you spent the most time on the cross training things. I mean, for you to do something like that, I mean, everyone wants to run, everybody just wants to be on the roads, the trails, but I mean, to put in the hours of, being on the elliptical, I think when we talked about it last fall, you said you spent probably each week 5 to 6 hours on the elliptical. I mean, does it get to a point where it's like, all right, this is tiring at first, but I'm like, all right, this is where my training's gonna be looking like.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not my favorite part of my training. It's definitely more fun to be out there with the team and get to run and release all those endorphins. It's just not really the same on the machine or even in the pool. But I think that really just like keeping the mindset of doing this allows me to be out there doing what I love is really helpful. And so I think the biggest thing is just finding a way to push through the monotony. whether that's a podcast or a show or music. I know a lot of people don't like to listen to anything when they work out because it makes it harder without it, but personally, I know I'm not going to make it through. So I think just kind of finding that thing and then also finding something that's motivating for you. One thing that I think always gets me really excited was after going to the elite camp this summer, I think just thinking about getting to run with all those girls and being a part of something like that and how my cross training and my training allows me to do that is a really big motivator for me. So I think just always keeping in mind what you're looking towards in the future is really helpful.
It's the go-to podcast when you're on the elliptical.
Ooh, I don't know. I used to really like listening to that Convos Over Cold Brew, but she hasn't posted any episodes in a while, so it's mostly music right now.
Well, what's the go-to music then?
Oh, it really just depends. A lot of the time I'll just find a random playlist or I'll get a friend to send me a playlist. Just anything that's fast. It can't be slower than I'm going or I can't do it.
So my thought is, let's see here. So I guess what's your favorite artist then?
See, it just changes all the time. I don't know. During NXN last year, I was really big into Usher, so I was excited that he was playing at the Super Bowl, but he didn't sing some of the songs I liked, so that was disappointing.
Usher's a go-to. There's plenty of other ones out there. I figure in the state of Texas, like country might be the hype up type of music. If maybe not, I don't know.
It definitely is popular. I am not personally a huge country person, but I do like it for driving, just not working out.
It's interesting. Almost a sin if you don't like country in the state of Texas. But maybe that's just my opinion.
It's even worse
Bad
that
right
I
there.
don't like Whataburger. I get quite the backlash for that one.
Oh, true Texan in itself right there, folks. But of course, that fall season saw a lot of good results, even though you were stuck on the elliptical quite a bit. Woodbridge comes to mind, the Texas State Championship comes to mind, NXR Southwest, and of course, Foot Locker. What do you feel like was your favorite moment from last fall?
Oh, that's hard. It was just such a great fall, but I think overall my favorite experience was just being back at state with the team. We really weren't expected to be there as a team, and I think that kind of the idea of being there on my own just would not have been the same. And so just seeing our girls kind of push through and pull together all season for each other to get to that point, and then also be able to come out with the individual title it was such a special moment. And, I had worked out with a lot of the boys all season, and so I was really close with that team too, and to have them medal at state it was so exciting to be a part of it all and see all the emotions. So I think overall that was probably my favorite, but there's definitely a lot of great moments to choose from, so it's hard.
How big of cheerleaders are the boys, especially since they're the ones that are working out with you every day and know what type of work ethic you're putting in day in and day out?
Yeah, they're just great. I mean, I think that they're there for me in my highest of highs and my lowest of lows. You know, coming back from an injury, I was getting dropped in pretty much every workout, but they were always just there supporting me and understanding that I just wasn't really at the point that they were at. And so I think it's just been really great to have them through the highs and through the lows and just have that kind of goal to work towards because they're always pushing themselves to get better. And I think it's really motivating for me to see and to also see just their team bond, our boys team, they have such a great relationship. They're together almost every weekend. And so I think for me, that's really aspirational. And I really do look up to them and just appreciate them so much and everything they've done for me.
Eventually, you beat them down the road too. Like that's the biggest accomplishment is you beat them in workouts. So, Foot Locker to me though, yeah, no, exactly. So no, for me, Foot Locker was it was winning that Foot Locker national title was, I think, a big thing for you. I mean, it seemed like just because like you got all this national spotlight, last year, and everyone was like, all right, when's this title coming? And you did it in San Diego on one of the toughest courses in America. For you to accomplish something like that, and I know it was a smaller field than XN, but that had to feel gratifying, didn't it?
Yeah, I think especially coming off NXN and kind of all that anticipation building up towards probably one of my poorer performances of the season definitely made coming back to Foot Locker and being able to really accomplish everything that I had set out to and end the season on a good note was just amazing. And I mean, there's just so many great people I got to meet at that meet and get to know. Sam Humphreys, we've raced in Texas, but I think that was really where I got to know her the best. She's fantastic. She's such a great person, and I think Oregon's gained a great athlete in her. And then getting to be with Sophia and Zariel, who I had already met, it was just fantastic. I think it was just such a great experience, and being able to finally kind of get that, I guess, performance on a national level was super exciting. So
I can only imagine, just kind of being in your mind, especially after NXN, trying to, well, obviously learn the lessons, but also like kind of search for that identity again to like find yourself as a racer. What were those, I guess, couple weeks like, or maybe it was a really quick turnaround for you before going to Foot Locker?
yeah, I think that it was definitely hard mentally to kind of get myself back into the place of competing. I think that kind of like you said with the identifying thing, I'd always kind of seen myself as the kind of runner who goes out hard and keeps it hard. And, I really put a lot of value on that kind of gritty all the way through from gun to tape. And so kind of having to reevaluate that strategy as maybe not being the best for every single race and every situation, every field you're up against was definitely something I had to think of. And it was definitely scary to kind of go and try to employ a different tactic for the first time at one of the biggest races of the season. But I think that kind of just, again, this is where the support system really comes to be super important. I think kind of talking through it with my coach and with my parents, and just also having my teammates there supporting me, just regardless of what had happened the week before, was just huge in getting me back into the place I needed to be able to compete that day.
And the race tactic that you used was you let Rachel Forsyth take it out, and you worked your way up throughout the race. Is that something that, and I know because you're so much talented than a lot of other athletes in the state of Texas, but is that kind of a strategy now that you have kind of encompassed and started using a little bit more in some particular races?
Yeah, I think that we did really talk about after that season being more flexible with race plans, because really my entire running career leading up to that, I had been pretty on the nose about just going out hard and staying hard. I mean, I even did that at Nike Outdoor Nationals my freshman year, and it it didn't work out poorly or anything, but I do think that I probably could have run it a little smarter in different ways instead of kind of helping other people. Um, and so I think that really just learning to be flexible. I do like to race that way. I know that a lot of people think it's harder, but I do like it. So I think really just learning to race all different kinds of ways is super important, because it all comes down to what field you're racing. And if you get too set in one strategy, you just don't have really a chance to succeed at every level that you want to.
Think that has worked out for you in a lot of circumstances. And one of the races that does come to mind is Nike Indoor Nationals in that 5,000 when you set the national record. I mean, that race, you not only like as I think a couple hours beforehand, I think Daniel Simmons had ran 13 something at New Balance Nationals, but this performance at Nike Indoor Nationals, I felt like was far superior to that one, even though he broke the national record too. But it just seemed like that record, chasing down Caitlin Toohey, who everybody knows in the state of New York and has ran at the Armory so many times, it's like that was her race. And so for you to go in there and take that record down, that was special in itself. Why was that special?
Yeah, I think that that race really and that meet in general just means a lot to me. It was just amazing to get to be there and be with all the girls that, like I said, I've gotten to know and really um, get to be pretty close with. But it was just such a cool race. I mean, it was pouring outside, so we were all doing our best to just do our warm up around this one building that had coverings. Um, it was late at night, and it was just, it had already been a great weekend. I mean, I think that had I not run that race very well, I still would have been happy with the meet overall. But to be able to kind of put that bow around it and do it with so many people that I've just grown to be really close with and to really adore was just such a great opportunity, and experience. And of course, I didn't go into it with the expectation of breaking that record. Caitlin Tui, someone I've watched for a long time and I really look up to, both as an athlete and a person. And so I think to just be able to do that was really far beyond what I thought I was capable of. So
I think that race as a whole, because you as a racer, you're a strong racer, and we see that throughout the races. I felt like the strength of yourself really just carried you through that race. I mean, it seemed like the last, and I was talking with somebody watching the race, I'm like, I feel like she's just getting faster and faster as this race goes on. Why is it that you value strength, and why has it been such an important tool for you?
yeah, I think that every athlete can benefit from being strong and from really kind of just developing that. I mean, again, I think it comes down to being able to race no matter the situation. And I think that if you really put yourself in a position where you're strong and you're confident in your abilities and um, you just know that you can handle anything, that's really going to make it a lot easier for you to kind of be more flexible in your race plans and to be able to race different ways and against different fields of competition and still be successful.
One of the things I think you really worked on this last spring was the speed aspects, and I think that's what makes you such a versatile athlete. I mean, you're still able to run a 4:44 mile, but also run 9:40 something for a 32 or a 2 mile or 15 sub 15:30. How beneficial was it for you to kind of start implanting this mile tactic too? Because that's been a big piece of your ability to get faster and faster.
Yeah, I think that the mile definitely used to be the kind of race I thought was the perfect distance. And I think over time, as I've gotten older and I've worked a lot more on endurance style things and focused on the longer events like the 2 mile and the 5K, it has gotten harder for me. But I think that that does make it just so much more important to do so that I do have that skill set. Because it's so easy to kind of lose the speed when you start to focus on the longer stuff and or to lose the endurance if you focus too much on the speed. So I think to have that race and keep a balance of both was super helpful. And also just having that race to kind of learn about pacing was a big thing. I mean, even at Millrose, I hadn't had that figured out, and that was a pretty rough one for me. But I think that just what I learned from that race kind of made it possible for me to do what I needed to do at Nike Indoor and at the rest of the races in the incoming season.
It, in this day and age, it's interesting you say 4:48 is a rough race because that's how much faster everybody is getting in this one. I mean, we saw the national record fall down twice in 10 minutes span at the Hoka Festival miles, and we're seeing the new standard. And now for girls, it seems like 4:40 is that new barrier to get under that. Then, of course, in the 2 mile, it seems like 10 minutes now is that new barrier really, because we're starting to see a lot more girls get faster and faster. What do you guys kind of attest to that? The fact that, particularly maybe someone like Sadie Englehart was kind of like a motivating factor, or also like even during COVID, there's not a whole ton to do, and cross country was an option that everyone could go do something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting and it's like crazy to think about because the times just seem to keep improving when you don't think that they can. But I think that just, of course, the shoes are a part of it, but I think a big part of it is also just the athletes and the competition um, among each other. And the motivation that we all have. I mean, I think so many of the opportunities that are available to us are just a huge motivating factor. Like, for me, really having that mindset of thinking about NXN or Foot Locker are a big thing that help motivate me in my workouts and keep me really driven and want to do more and take it to the next step. So I think that just kind of having those opportunities available to us and the competition amongst each other, as well as just the high class level of athletes that we have competing right now, I think that all contributes and has made it a really great environment and time to be competing in the sport.
When you run fast, you get to have fast opportunities like the Olympic trials. I know it wasn't necessarily the best outcome for you, but I mean, to experience something like that as a sophomore in high school, when you're in your particular heat, you raced against Elise Cranny, Rachel Smith, your idol, Caitlin Toohey, Jose Andrews. I mean, there's so many women that have gone on to accomplish so many great things, and you got to be a part of that in Eugene. Just the experience itself, what was that like?
Yeah, I think that it was definitely intimidating hopping into that race because training wise, I think I was just not really confident in where I was. I had basically been running 10 miles a week for about 2 months at that point. I guess 2 months at that point after an injury that I got pretty close to the state meet. And so it definitely was intimidating stepping on the line, knowing this was going to be the most competitive race I had ever been a part of, and knowing that physically I was not where I would hope to be. So I think definitely that part was intimidating, and I was really just praying not to get last, or at least to hang on and not get lapped. But I think really just at the end of the day, the reason I did it was for the opportunity and just remembering how hard I'd worked to get to that point and how much I would have loved to have been a part of it. And so I think that just getting to be a part of it and getting to meet all those people and experience definitely a different type of race. I mean, of course, like I said, I've tried other strategies this last year, but never something quite like that. So I think getting accustomed to that and realizing that sometimes high-level races are going to look like that was just a great experience for me, and I think it's definitely full of learning lessons for the future.
Was there something that somebody said that really stood out to you out at that race, whether it be from somebody that was in the race with you, somebody that was not in the race with you, could have been somebody that was watching the race? Was there one thing you took away? It's like, yeah, I'll think about that in the future.
I think one big thing that just sticks out to me, it wasn't necessarily advice, but just kind of the level of sportsmanship even there. I mean, on the line, Elise told me good luck, and she was just very encouraging. And I mean, I know that that's a stressful environment for her, and that this was a big race for her. And I mean, no one owes it to each other to do that out there, but I think that just shows a lot about the kind of community in our sport and the kind of people who do it. And I think that that really just gave me a lot of optimism for being a part of it, because at the end of the day, you know, we're competitors, but we can also be friends and really just have a lot of respect for each other. And so I think that that really sticks out to me and makes me really excited for the future of our sport.
I can only imagine what your facial expression is like when Elise Cranny, a world-class athlete, comes up to you and says good luck, and you're probably like, okay.
I know, she's insane. And then watching her take out that race, and I don't know, didn't she close in like a 4:30? That's just insane to me.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, from their standards, it was not a fast race. Maybe for you, it might have been a fast race, but for them, it was another jog in the park.
Yeah,
So,
well, it was
but
crazy to me. I was dying there at the end.
but nonetheless, a great experience. You got to learn a lot from it, and then now it's kind of carried you over to this fall season, which again, another big year of expectations, perhaps some bounce back efforts as well. Looking at what you want to accomplish this year as a junior, what's your number one goal for this season?
Yeah, I think that for me, getting back to NXN and Foot Locker is a huge thing. Of course, I'd like to be able to defend my title at Foot Locker, and I'd love to be in contention at NXN, but just knowing the nature of the sport and kind of the field of competitors I'm up against, even at 100% and having a really good summer of training behind you, they're still really hard girls to beat. And so I do realize that it could be my season or it could not. And so I think another thing that's just really a big focus for me is kind of the team goals. We have a pretty young team coming up, and like I said, I hopped in that first race kind of just to help guide them through it was a big motivating factor. So I think just kind of getting them excited in the sport and hopefully being able to have a really good solid team through the next 2 years, and hopefully even when I'm gone, would be a really big thing for me. So I think that's a big priority this year.
We've already opened the season with a 16-32 effort, which I think anybody wants to have that on their team. And I think that's definitely a huge low stick for the Boerne Champion team that wants to accomplish a lot this year. What do you think is the ceiling for this group in the state of Texas this year?
You know, I hesitate to say because I don't want to put expectations on them that put pressure there, but I do think that they have a really good chance to be competitive on the state level. I don't know necessarily if we'll get the gold or full medal. I mean, 5A in Texas is very competitive, but I do think that the potential is there. And I think that just kind of if we work together and we try to improve some things as a team collectively, I think that we have a really good chance to at least be out there competing for a medal. So I hope for that, and I guess we'll reevaluate later in the season whether we're going to do NXR as a team, but it would be great to see them out there. So I hope that ends up being the case, but we'll see.
I'm sure they appreciate your leadership and willingness to, be out there for them, especially this early on in the season. I mean, a lot of athletes that are at your level don't necessarily start racing until maybe about mid-September, but for you to go out there and like I said, be that leader to go help them out, it shows the tremendous character that you have within yourself. Elizabeth, really appreciate your time. I know we're just running a little bit out of time here to chat some more, but I know this season is going to be a great one for you. Again, #1 girl ranked coming into this preseason for cross country. Really appreciate your time. Best of luck this cross country season.
Thank you. Great talking to you.